Okay, so I wanted to take a minute to just explain a little something about the independent states and dependent states, and how that's in the Constitution, and how to read it when you read the Constitution, because they're both in there. The Constitution is vague because it doesn't talk about the independent states and the dependent states. It just says states. So when you're looking at the United States, you're looking at dependent states. When you're looking at the United States of America, you're looking at independent states. The stripes on the flag are for the independent states. The stars on the flag are for the dependent states. The stars represent military. The stars with no lines inside represent military. So every time a state joins the Union, you don't get the star because the state joined the Union. You get the star because now you have added a military state inside the state that joined the Union. Because that is the flag of the United States, not the United States of America. It's not written in the law as being a flag for the United States of America. It's in the law written as a flag for the United States. So every time an independent state joins the Union, a star is added to the flag, not for the independent state, but for the dependent state created in the independent state, which are the military areas. The United States is all the federal lands, all the dependent states. Dependent states have no sovereignty, they're non-sovereign. Independent states which have sovereignty allow for the creation of the federal government, which is the dependent state. Independent states can secede from the Union. Dependent states, which are the federal areas inside the state, cannot secede from the Union. Dependent states are called by the federal government state of, like where I live is state of Texas. Independent states are just called like Texas. That does not mean that Texas cannot create another dependent state inside of it called state of Texas. But when the independent state is using state of Texas, it means the dependent state created without the federal government. When the federal government, United States, uses the term dependent states or any of its state of places, it's talking about the dependent states that it creates. Okay, so it's really not confusing if you think about it. So think about in the Constitution, in the preamble, it says, "We the people of the dependent states do promise to do all these things for the independent states." Two places. It's not a long form United States of America for a United States. So United States is not the abbreviation of the United States of America or a short form of saying United States of America. That's not. They're both states. They're different states. United States is a dependent state, non-sovereign. United States of America is the independent state, having sovereignty. Okay, independent states can secede from the Union, dependent states cannot. The preamble. The dependent states promises to work for the independent states doing these things. These are our goals, to achieve these things. Okay? Article 1, Section 1, the Congress of the dependent states, or the Congress makes laws for the dependent states, the military areas, and the seat of government. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 17. The Congress shall make all these laws, Article 1, Section 8, the Congress shall make all these laws for the seat and the lands purchased, which are the dependent states. And the dependent states are allowed to run without interference from the independent states. Article 2, Section 1, the President is the President being the executive officer of the independent states, sovereign states. And Article, they're scratching up my solar panels. And the Article 2, Section 2, the President shall be Commander-in-Chief of the dependent states, which are called the United States Land and Naval Forces. United States, dependent states, non-sovereign, has no sovereignty. So all you people who believe that state of Texas can bring you in for any crime or any purpose or any reason when you're not on federal lands is wrong. All you people who believe that the federal government has power over you and can charge you with a federal crime when you're not on federal lands, you're wrong. And all you people who believe that you have to pay federal taxes when you're not on federal lands and you don't receive compensation for services from working for the government, you're wrong. All you people who believe that you have to get a license to drive on the road and you have to have a legal description of your property and you have to register your vehicle, you're wrong also. Because you're actually in the independent state. You're actually in the sovereign state. Okay, so if you want to go be on federal lands and be in the dependent state, you'll have to join the military or become a civil servant working for the federal government. And then you can be on the dependent state and under the control of the Commander-in-Chief, Article 2, Section 2, and Congress, Article 1, who makes laws for the dependent states. So who makes laws for the independent states? The independent state. So Texas is an independent state. State of Texas is a dependent state. The Attorney General works for the state of as part of the dependent state. The Secretary of State requiring you to register your business as part of the dependent state. The federal lands, okay? The state of Texas, governor of the state of Texas, part of the dependent state, federal government, okay? I've heard somebody say that the governors of the states are both the governors of the dependent states and the independent states. And that and the office of the presidency having two offices, I find a little strange because you cannot be the landlord and the tenant, and you cannot be the servant and the master. So I have a little bit of conflict with the president being commander-in-chief and the executive officer of the independent states, because it seems like in one hand he's saying he's the master and in the other he's saying he's the servant, where you can't be both the servant and the master. And that's an ancient maxim where it seems like our founders kind of did that. Okay, so I want to keep this video short. So you have independent states that are sovereign and dependent states that are not sovereign. You have the independent states that gave up land to the federal government to create dependent states, and that is what they have control over. Independent states, which are the military areas, cannot secede from the Union, and they're called state of Texas or state of wherever you're at. And the independent states can secede from the Union by taking back those federal lands from the federal government. Okay, taking back those dependent states and absorbing them back into their independent states. Okay, so, or they just can create it into another independent state, but without the United States. So it's not really that complicated. You just have to know how to put things in pockets so that they can be sorted out. And anytime you see in any of the federal laws, rules, regulations, when it talks about the 50 states or the states or the several states or whatever, it's talking about the dependent states, not the independent states, because the federal government cannot control independent states. There was a whole thing during the Civil War where states tried to secede from the Union and go back to the Articles of Confederation and all that, and Lincoln put troops in the independent states to try to take them over, and he had no power to do that. Okay, he had no power to doing anything outside or off their lands, off their dependent states where they have no sovereignty, is an act against the Constitution. So anything outside of the Constitution is an act against it, and they have no power to do it. Just like I have no power to make laws for the roads, and nobody has power to make laws for my property. The federal government cannot go off federal lands and make power for and make laws and rules and regulations for us, just like Lincoln doesn't have the power to do anything outside of the Constitution because he doesn't have the power to do it. Therefore, it doesn't exist. If that makes sense, it's like doing something without the power to do it. You had no power to do it, so you never really did it. So I guess that's about all I have for independent states and dependent states. And I hope you understand that. If not, write me some comments in the comment section, and I will try to take into consideration questions and either do another video or respond individually to the comments. Okay, so y'all have a great day. Like, share, subscribe. Please consider sharing because I basically can't get on social media anywhere. And I appreciate all the help in getting the word out because it unchains us all.